Good afternoon, Professor Joseph, Ida, Zachary. I thank you for the time and patience and understanding and allowing me to facilitate my final presentation through YouTube and in this manner. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you look forward to hearing what I have to offer on far as how race and gender affect your education. Racial and gender disparities have a significant impact on education across the world. In the United States, for example, it is a fact that African Americans and Hispanics have been victims of school segregation in the era that racism was at its peak. Although the situation has significantly improved, still some states spend far more money in education in white-dominated schools than in Hispanics and African American schools. In Africa, and as observed by UNESCO, families support male children than female children to attend school. A study done among the Mandi of Liberia found out that 70% of male children are likely to attend school because their parents are willing to pay school fees, whereas only 35% of girls are supported to go to school. The Mandi tribe, for instance, believes that girls should be groomed for marriage and not for school. Therefore, race and gender affects education in significant ways. Unequal opportunities, background implications, cultural stereotypes, bias, and sexual orientation. First, unequal opportunities affect both race and gender. In terms of race and across the world, certain races are more educated than others. For example, it is a fact that Asians are more educated than Africans. The level of education across the racial spectrum is dependent on the extent of development. In Africa, most countries are wallowing in abject poverty compared to Asia, Europe, and North America. In multicultural America, the same is reflected across the whites, blacks, Latinos, and Asians. According to the Stablich study, less Latinos and blacks are likely to enroll in school as compared to whites and Asians. The enrollment rate of 18 to 24-year-olds between 2011 and 2013 was 73% for Asians, 54% for whites, 48% for blacks, and 44% for Latinos. The disparities in enrollment are rooted in unequal opportunities. For example, since college education is very expensive in the U.S., few Latinos and blacks students can afford it. Asians and whites are more likely to afford their costly education than blacks and Latinos. Based on this information, education should be made more affordable for those who are unlikely to afford it. When it is not made affordable, then there is no equal opportunity across the racial divide. Furthermore, according to Annie E. Casey Foundation, the wealthiest districts in the United States spend 10 times more in education than the poorest districts. Figure 1 shows racial disparities in education based on graduation rates. Clearly, whites have a higher probability for graduation than Hispanics and Native Americans, whereas the graduation rate for whites is 91%. Hispanics and Native Americans lag behind at 62% and 52% respectively. The disparities in graduation are rooted in unequal education opportunities across the races regardless of their social and economic status. Second, the nature of racial background also affects education significantly. The developing world, for example in Africa, some parts of Asia, Middle East, and Latin America, it is difficult to access high-quality education. Amongst these races, high-quality education is preserved for the affluent. The level of education material and content in Africa is incomparable with the level of education material and content in America, Canada, or the UK. Races from developed countries are able to access high-quality education than races from third-world countries. Clearly, poverty and underdevelopment of these races is the fundamental issue affecting the quality of education. Third, in terms of gender, cultural stereotypes often play a major role. According to UNESCO report, about 35% of Africans believe that male children should be given a priority in education than female children. The black race often views women in terms of domestic roles than venturing into education. In some tribes, women are treated as unequal to men and seen as lesser. Actually, for ages, women have been denied the right to education in Saudi Arabia until recently. Discrimination of women in the Arab world is viller than anywhere in the world. Often, male counterparts have formed drastic stereotypes against women that prevent them from attending school. The view that only men should study in most fundamentalist Arabian countries demonstrates deep-rooted cultural stereotypes, of course, that are major hindrance to the girl-child education. Fourth, gender bias is also a major issue in education. Bias cuts across education disciplines across the world. For example, it is common to find male students dominate in engineering courses, firefighting, piloting, among others, than in nursing, teaching, and so forth. Actually, previously the nursing profession was seen as female discipline, whereas men than women have dominated engineering courses. Gender bias across disciplines is a notable issue that hinders education attainment across genders. Moreover, the UNESCO report suggests bias in the use of education technology transverse genders. For example, more male students use computers in education than female students. The disparity is influenced by female perceptions towards the use of technology. These perceptions proliferate because of the extent of gender biased entrance in the education system. Fifth, sexual orientation also affects education. In the recent past, sexual orientation has become a major social issue affecting a wide range of social activities, one of them being education. A student's sexual orientation is likely to negatively affect developmental and learning experiences and adversely affect their access to education. Lesbians, bisexuals, gays, and transgender students face discrimination that affect their integration into the larger school community. Accordingly to UNESCO, sexual orientation is a source of social anxiety and discrimination, especially for students who are young to understand and appreciate their fellow students' sexual preference. While there is a high level of tolerance for individuals' sexual orientation in developed countries, such students are always harassed and expelled from school in developing countries. Lesbians and gays are considered social outcasts in most societies, and such students are likely to be expelled from school. In addition, UNESCO argues that such students fear that their safety and they also feel not wanted by their general society, which demotivates them to continue with their education once they discover their sexual orientation. Precisely, race and gender affect education significantly, and insofar as there exist unequal opportunities in education, influence of student background in education, cultural stereotypes, and gender bias. Unequal opportunities are more pronounced in race than in gender. Student background is also critical, though it can be addressed by governments. Cultural stereotypes and bias can also be addressed through awareness programs. These disparities that I just laid out for you are quite significant to me, and they hold a special meaning in my heart. I understand what it's like to be discriminated against. I understand what it's like to have something taken away from me because of something that the society in a whole deems not normal. We as a society need to move forward. We as a society need to make change. Even so, changes through race and gender have been significantly made through the last 100 years. Going forward, there's still a lot of work that we need to address. I feel greatly that my mental illness has been discriminated against. So, in a certain context, not to the greatest degree of others, I understand. So, this is what I feel is prevalent for me to bring forward to you. Allowing me the opportunity to speak freely in this manner, allowing me the generalization to set forth parameters that we need to address as a society, from our government down through our school systems. There's great need for education. There's great need for change. There's great need for others to perceive us in a manner that's consistent with everybody on a level playing field. There's no need for us as a society to deem anybody less than somebody else. Just because the color of my skin shouldn't hinder me getting the same opportunities as others. My family immigrated to this country, and they were given the greatest opportunity to achieve a better lifestyle for their families. Without the hard work that my grandparents have put forth as they were immigrants, I would not be standing here with this opportunity today. I would not have the forum to speak freely. I would not have the forum to address disparities in this country. I believe not only race, gender, mental illness, all these avenues need to be addressed. And I hope in the coming years that I could use my experiences to better educate, to better facilitate, to help others better understand what it's like to step foot in my shoes. If you would like, I would love to discuss what I go through on a further basis, as I understand this is not the forum, but I would love the opportunity to facilitate on a grander scale. And if you could help me with that, I would greatly appreciate that. Again, I thank you for this opportunity. It's been a wonderful class, Professor Joseph. I thank you for educating me, for making me see outside the box, for bringing forth a lot of disparities that we as a society need to overcome. I thank you, and good day.